You probably are not failing to make gains in the gym because you're not eating enough protein or because you're not doing enough training. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and this is something that I come across as a coach, that I come across as influencer and educator. Oftentimes you get people who are not super advanced lifters, and I want to be clear here when I say that. Right, advanced lifters can be a different ball game at times, so I'm not talking about you. Like if you're already repping 500 pounds on the deadlift, you're doing repping 300, 315 on the bench press, I'm not talking about you. So let's set that aside. We're talking about people who are below this threshold, who they're convinced, maybe I'm just not eating enough protein, maybe I'm not getting enough gym time in, I'm not doing enough volume in my workouts. And I can tell you 95% of the time, this is absolutely not the case. What do I mean? Because if either one of those is the case, you wouldn't be making zero gains, you would just be making slower gains, okay? Right? Now, what would be exceptions be? All right, if you're only working out for 30 minutes once a week, okay, maybe. If you're doing a vegan diet and not tracking protein, okay, you might be in that category. So again, there are exceptions to the rule I just gave. But realistically speaking, if you are going to the gym 2 or 3 days a week and you're in there for 30 minutes and your training is good, you have enough gym time and you probably have enough volume that you should be making some progress, even if it's really, really slow. Okay. Same thing with the food. People who are like, well, I do eat some chicken breast or some animal protein every day, plus I'm on a decent amount of calories. Okay. So you're above the RDA on protein, right? You're not only eating like 40, 50 grams of protein a day, right? Well, if that's the case, that's not why you're not gaining muscle. We want to be clear here when we start talking about high protein intakes, or we start talking about high volumes of training, we're not talking about to make any gains. We're talking about getting that last 1% to 2%. So again, I want to be clear there. These are things that we do to fine tune and optimize our results. When we no longer want just okay results, we want the best possible results. Does that make sense? This is fine tuning. This is stuff like icing on the cake, maximizing and optimizing the training volume, up to the point of saying, what's the most volume I can recover from? All right. That is now trying to optimize things. You are chasing 0.5% more than what you have been gaining. But if you're not gaining at all, it's unlikely it's volume. Same thing on the protein intake. When you start looking at some of the more moderate protein intakes versus the high protein intakes in the research, the people on the moderate protein are not gaining zero. They're gaining muscle still. Okay? They're still gaining muscle on 80, 90, 100 grams of protein just fine. No problem. When we start trying to maximize these things, like trying to go to things like 1.4 or 1.5 grams per kilogram of body weight, you are chasing the last little bit. These are finishing touches. This is not where you get your gains. I have seen lifters do 4 or 5 sets per muscle group a week and make decent gains. So I want to be clear there. If you are picking good exercises, you're performing them correctly, and you are doing your sets hard. And hard means actually hard. Like I'm doing decently hard training in this video. Hard doesn't mean, can I do a 6-second eccentric rep and then stop short at the bottom? That's not training hard. Training hard is putting real effort into the sets. All right, notice all this benching, pausing on the chest, exploding, taking these sets to about 1 to 0 reps in reserve. Some of the stuff I'm doing in here is to failure. Okay, momentary muscle failure. Or getting within 1 rep of failure. That's training hard, putting effort in, focusing on progressive overload. Okay? So here's usually what's happening when people are not making gains. You're simply not eating enough, or you're bulking and cutting too much. That's a big one I see a lot. Guys are like, well, I'm not gaining fast enough, so they overbulk, they gain mostly fat, and then they do a big cut. And what I mean is, I'll see guys who are, at an average height, they'll be starting at like 150 pounds. I mean, I could put that in kilos for people. Let's say they're 70 kilos and they gain 10 or 12 kilos in 3 months. Now, that's all fat, right? We're clear on that. 90+% of that is fat. Then they're like, oh my God, I'm getting sloppy. Then they cut and they do a serious cut. They cut that same amount of weight. And because they lose so much weight so quickly, they burn off any small amount of muscle that they gained in that time. They repeat this process and they go, well, this is why I'm just spinning my wheels. And it's like, but you just did that to yourself. You intentionally chose to make no progress. You overbulked, knowing it is biologically impossible to gain muscle even at half of that rate. Not even close to half that rate. It cannot be done. So you knew it was all fat, and you know that you lose muscle when you cut. If you cut 20 pounds of body weight or 10 kilos of body weight in a short period of time, what do I mean a short period of time? Less than 6 months. You're going to lose muscle. So you intentionally built almost no muscle, gained fat, and then burned off your muscle. It was by design. Same thing on the training. They're not training hard enough. They really aren't training hard enough. Their idea of hard is to do some really slow negatives. They're not pushing their big exercises hard. They're not selecting exercises. When they do pick an isolation to do after it, they'll pick the easiest thing they can possibly come up with, right? Not training hard enough. Not consistent enough. If people were just consistent and they just consistently ate at least maintenance calories, lots of carbs, high quality food, got enough sleep, trained hard, even at lower volumes, you would still be gaining muscle. And that's where I want to be clear. These things are not why people are gaining no muscle. It is the dieting mistakes I just discussed. The same thing of trying to do excessive volume to the point where there's zero effort into any of it. Right? Nothing hard's being done. Nothing challenging, nothing difficult. That's why people are not gaining muscle. It is not the other two. Those things, optimizing high volumes of training, maximizing protein intake, this is stuff that you do chasing the last finishing touches when everything else is dialed in. Right? It should not be the foundation of your gains. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.